For 2 months, Lisa Marie Presley kept her dead son's body in a casita bedroom at her California home, preserved on dry ice. She visited him every day. When a tattoo artist arrived to copy the ink on Benjamin's collarbone, Lisa Marie didn't show him a photograph. She walked him to the body. That detail came from Riley Keough, Elvis Presley's granddaughter, in the memoir she finished after her mother's death. But the body on dry ice was just one revelation in a book that cracked open 3 generations of the Presley family. To understand how Riley Keough ended up as the last person standing in America's most famous musical dynasty, you have to start where every Presley story starts: Graceland, the white-columned mansion on Elvis Presley Boulevard in Memphis, Tennessee, where the king of rock and roll lived, performed, declined, and ultimately died on August 16, 1977. His daughter Lisa Marie was 9 years old that morning. She was the only other person sleeping upstairs, and years later, she told Riley that she had written little notes as a child saying she hoped her daddy wouldn't die. She had a sense, even at 9, that something was deeply wrong. Lisa Marie inherited Graceland and the entire Elvis Presley estate. But inheriting a kingdom doesn't mean you know how to live inside it. By her late teens, she had cycled through boarding schools, been kicked out of several, and developed the restless, unmoored energy of someone who had everything except stability. She married musician Danny Keough in 1988. Riley was born the following year in Santa Monica, California. Her brother Benjamin followed in 1992. For a brief window, the family lived something resembling a quiet life. But that window closed fast. Just 20 days after divorcing Danny Keough in 1994, Lisa Marie married Michael Jackson. Riley was 5 years old. She went from splitting time between Los Angeles and Graceland to suddenly living at Neverland Ranch, the sprawling estate in Santa Barbara County with its own carnival rides, zoo animals, and movie theater. Riley has described that period, strangely enough, as feeling normal. Neverland had a surreal quality to it, but to a child, surreal just becomes the texture of daily life when there's nothing ordinary to compare it to. Jackson was, by Riley's account, kind to her and Benjamin. He made pancakes. He played games. He and Lisa Marie shared the bond of 2 people who had both grown up inside impossible fame and recognized something familiar in each other. But their marriage lasted barely 2 years. Jackson's escalating drug use terrified Lisa Marie, who at that point was fiercely anti-substance. She had watched addiction destroy her father. She had been raised inside Scientology since the age of 10, a framework that reinforced her avoidance of drugs with almost religious intensity. So when she saw the doctors circling Jackson, she left. The divorce was finalized in 1996, and Lisa Marie moved on to her 3rd marriage, this time to Nicolas Cage. That one lasted exactly 107 days. Think about that for a second. 3 marriages before she turned 40, and the relationships kept getting shorter. The pattern wasn't random. Lisa Marie was chasing the same thing in every marriage, a version of the unconditional, consuming love she'd had with her father, and each time she couldn't find it, she moved on rather than sit inside the disappointment. Her 4th marriage, to musician and producer Michael Lockwood in 2006, produced twin daughters Harper and Finley in 2008. And this is where the story takes its darkest turn. Because the birth of those twins triggered something Lisa Marie had been holding back her entire life. She was prescribed opioids for the delivery, and the addiction that followed was swift, severe, and eventually uncontrollable. Riley has written about watching this happen in real time. Her mother, who had spent decades terrified of drugs, who had marched in anti-drug rallies, who had left Michael Jackson partly because of his substance use, was now deep inside the same cycle. Lisa Marie would say throughout her life that if she ever tried drugs, it would be over for her. She had an intuition about it, Riley wrote, like a shadow that followed her everywhere. Scientology had kept it at bay. Raising children had kept it at bay. But after the twins were born, the shadow caught up. Lisa Marie left Scientology in 2013. She left Los Angeles. She left her social circle, her community, her entire support structure. She moved to the English countryside with Lockwood and the infant twins, isolated and increasingly dependent on prescription pills. Riley, by then in her early 20s and building her own acting career, didn't fully realize how bad it had gotten until much later. The distance between them was both physical and chemical. Then came July 12, 2020. Benjamin Keough, 27 years old, hosted a birthday party for his girlfriend at the family home in Calabasas. Guests were downstairs celebrating. Benjamin went upstairs. He didn't come back down. He died by suicide that evening, and the shockwave that went through the Presley family has never fully stopped. What Lisa Marie did next is the detail that made headlines around the world when the memoir was published. California has no law requiring immediate burial. Lisa Marie found a funeral home director willing to help her keep Benjamin's body at the house. She set up the casita bedroom at 55 degrees, packed it with dry ice, and for 2 months, she cared for her son's remains the way she had once cared for him alive. She sat with him. She talked to him. She said she could feel him eventually telling her it was time, that he was saying, in her words, "This is insane, Mom. What are you doing?" Riley sat in that room too. She has written about the experience with the kind of dark, clear-eyed honesty that only someone raised inside genuine absurdity could pull off. When the tattoo artist came and Lisa Marie walked him to Benjamin's body, instead of showing him a photograph, Riley described it as one of the top 5 most bizarre moments of her life. Not tragic, not horrifying, bizarre. That distinction matters because it tells you something about the emotional register this family operates in. Tragedy was the baseline. Bizarre was the only thing that still registered. Benjamin was eventually buried at Graceland in the meditation garden beside Elvis. Less than 3 years later, Lisa Marie followed him. On January 12, 2023, she suffered cardiac arrest caused by a small bowel obstruction, a complication from bariatric surgery she had undergone years earlier. She was 54, the same age her father was when he became a grandfather. She never finished her memoir, but she had recorded hours of audio tape, raw, unfiltered, sometimes rambling, sometimes devastatingly precise recordings of herself talking about her life, her father, her marriages, her children, her addictions, and the weight of being Elvis Presley's only child. Riley got those tapes after her mother's funeral. She lay in bed and listened to them, alone, and she described the experience as hearing her mother's voice talking directly to her from somewhere beyond death. It made her feel like a child again, and it made her determined to finish the book. From Here to the Great Unknown was published in October 2024. Riley and her mother share authorship, their voices alternating across chapters in 2 distinct fonts. Lisa Marie's sections come directly from the tapes, edited for clarity, but otherwise preserved in her own raw cadence. Riley's sections fill in the gaps, adding context her mother couldn't provide, correcting timelines, and offering the perspective of a daughter who watched all of it unfold from inside the family rather than from behind a tabloid headline. Riley told Oprah Winfrey during a CBS primetime special that she found the process of listening to her mother's recordings both painful and strangely comforting, like having one final conversation across the divide of death. The book landed in the middle of a legal battle that had been brewing since Lisa Marie's death. Priscilla Presley, Elvis's ex-wife and Riley's grandmother, challenged the validity of a 2016 amendment to Lisa Marie's trust. That amendment had removed Priscilla as co-trustee and replaced her with Riley and Benjamin. After Benjamin's death, Riley became the sole trustee. Priscilla's attorneys argued the document had irregularities, including a misspelled name and an inconsistent signature. The dispute was settled in mid-2023, with Riley confirmed as sole trustee and Priscilla receiving a $1 million lump sum, a $100,000 annual advisory fee, and the guarantee of burial at Graceland beside Elvis. Riley has been careful about how she talks about that period. She doesn't frame it as a fight with her grandmother. She describes it as chaos, the kind of confusion that erupts when someone dies suddenly and the structures holding a family together turn out to be more fragile than anyone realized. She and Priscilla appeared together at the Emmy Awards in matching Chanel dresses months after the settlement. When interviewers ask about the relationship, Riley says they're close and that they always have been, with the exception of one very strange and very public legal chapter. Today, Riley Keough is 36 years old, the sole owner of Graceland, the guardian of her half-sister's subtrusts, and a mother of two, raising her children in deliberate contrast to the way she was raised. She has said she wants her daughter Tupelo to find joy in playing in the backyard, in ordinary kid experiences, because Riley's own childhood was so extraordinary that she struggled for years to appreciate simple things. Having Neverland Ranch and Graceland as your two primary residences sounds like a dream on paper. In practice, it meant that by the time she was a teenager, almost nothing could impress her, and that numbness had a cost. When interviewers ask Riley about the so-called Presley curse, the supposed pattern of addiction and early death that has followed the family for 3 generations, she pushes back on the framing. She calls it a weird question. She points out that addiction and depression are not curses. They are common, treatable conditions that happen to be harder to treat when your entire life is public property and every stumble becomes a headline. The mythology around her family, she suggests, is part of what made it so difficult for the people inside it to get help. When your grandfather is treated as a god, when your mother is treated as a cautionary tale, when your brother is treated as a statistic, the pressure to perform normalcy becomes its own kind of sickness. Riley didn't write From Here to the Great Unknown to settle scores or to package her mother's pain into a neat narrative. She wrote it because her mother asked her to, 1 month before she died, and because she believed the world deserved to see Lisa Marie as more than a tabloid headline. Not just the daughter of Elvis, not just the ex-wife of Michael Jackson, not just the woman who kept her son's body on dry ice. A complete person, contradictory and brilliant, and broken and loving, who spent her entire life trying to outrun a legacy that was always faster than she was. The fact that Riley is the one who finally told that story, after Elvis couldn't, after Lisa Marie couldn't, after Benjamin couldn't, says something about what survival actually looks like inside a family where survival has never been guaranteed. She is not performing grief. She is not performing strength. She is doing the only thing left to do when everyone you've lost left pieces of their story unfinished. She is picking up the pages and writing the ending herself. If you found this story worth your time, subscribe for more like it. There's a video on screen right now that goes deeper into the Presley family legacy, and it might change how you think about everything you thought you knew about Elvis.